let's know about reinforcement. First, let us see what is reinforcement. Reinforcement is an event that increases the future probability of the most recent response. So, reinforcements are events that strengthen behaviors, and punishments are events that weaken them. Okay, there are four types of reinforcement. Let us see what is positive reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is the presentation of an event that strengthens or increases the likelihood of a behavior. A typical example is working for money or food. So here the punishment occurs when a response is followed by an event such as pain. The result is to decrease the frequency of the response. Understood? So take for example, you put your hand on a hot stove and burn yourself, or you insult someone who then slaps you. Okay, so punishment is also called passive avoidance learning here. Okay, because the individual learns to avoid some outcome by being passive. For example, by not putting your hand on the stove or by not insulting the people. So we saw two things. One is positive reinforcement, then passive avoidance learning, right? Then what is omission training? Let us see. Omission training occurs when the omission of the response produces reinforcement, right? So therefore, producing the response also leads to a lack of reinforcement. Let us see one example. If you make one more snotty remark, you will get no dessert. Omitting the snotty remark is reinforced with dessert. Producing the response leads to a lack of dessert. So this procedure is occasionally called negative punishment to indicate that the response is punished by the absence of a reinforcer. Then let us see what is active avoidance learning. This is nothing but we can tell this as an escape learning. This occurs if the responses lead to escape from or avoidance of something unpleasant. Understood? One, so therefore learns to make the response even though it followed by nothing happening. Examples are learning to come indoors when a storm is brewing to avoid getting wet, and learning to get out of the way when you hear a driver blowing a horn, right? No, that is to avoid getting hit, because the response is reinforced by the absence of a painful event. Escape or avoidance learning is also sometimes called a negative reinforcement. So we have to note that negative reinforcement is not a punishment. It is reinforcement, that is strengthening by the absence of something that would have occurred. So the terms escape learning and avoidance learning are less confusing than the term negative reinforcement, right? But you should understand all of these terms. So to conclude, responses are increased by gaining something like food, that is positive reinforcement, or avoiding something like pain, escape or avoidance training, or negative reinforcement. So responses are decreased by receiving pain, that is punishment, or by losing a chance for food or the like, that is omission training. Hope you understood. Edward Thorndike introduced the concept of reinforcement. A reinforcement increases the probability that the preceding response will be repeated. Okay. So next is operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is the process of controlling the rate of behavior through its consequences. Then extinction. In operant conditioning, a response becomes extinguished if it is no longer followed by reinforcement. Then what is shaping? Shaping is a technique for training subjects to perform difficult acts by reinforcing them for a successive approximations to the desired behavior. So what is reinforcement and punishment? Behavior can be reinforced, that is strengthened, by presenting favorable events, right, or by omitting unfavorable events. So behavior can be punished, suppressed by presenting unfavorable events or by omitting favorable events. What may be the nature of reinforcement? The opportunity to engage in a more probable behavior will reinforce a less probable behavior. Sometimes that an individual can exchange for a reinforcer becomes a reinforcer itself. So learning what leads to what. Animals learn which reinforcement is associated with which behavior. Their frequency of repeating a given behavior depends on the motivation to receive the reinforcement at the moment. So schedules of reinforcement can be the frequency and time of a response depend on the schedule of reinforcement. So in a ratio schedule or reinforcement, an individual is given reinforcement after a fixed or variable number of responses. In an interval schedule of reinforcement, an individual is given reinforcement after a fixed or variable period of time. So, applications, people have applied operant conditioning to animal training, persuasion, applied behavior analysis, and the breaking of bad habits. Thank you so much.